was everything we could have asked for. An actual battle to the finish. Almost. Ricky Carmichael is back in control for the 10th year in a row, and Southwick is the next test. Hello and welcome everyone to New England. It's the Toyota AMA Motocross Championship presented by FMF. And we are at Southwick, Massachusetts for Motocross 338, named for the American Legion Post nearby. And it's round 3 of 12 here in the Motocross Championship. I'm Brian Drebber along with David Pingree. Aaron Bates will be working for us down there in the pit area and in victory lane. Course workers putting some water on the track, even though they've had a lot of rain here over the last week or so. The conditions are nearly perfect as the riders get set to go for Moto number 1.
There's a lot to be excited about this weekend. The track's running backwards. I don't think it's ever happened before at a national here at Southwick. They've changed the layout a little bit. They've had rain all week long, so the track's nice and wet. The weather's cool. Sometimes it can be just miserably hot and sticky here. So, you know, it's going to be a great weekend. There's a lot of things to look forward to. Last weekend, you know, had a horrible accident with James Stewart at High Point, and he's coming back. Nobody was sure if he was going to ride or not. He ended up turning a fast lap time in practice on Saturday, and he's on the starting line right now.
Well, to the surprise of many, but probably not to James Stewart himself, he's got a lot to think about here as Ricky Carmichael is once again in control. Let's take a look at last week, and if you don't want to look, then turn your eyes away.
Yeah, these two had a great battle the entire first moto, and it was coming down to the last couple laps, and looked like James had it covered. And then that. I just threw up in my mouth a little bit. That's terrible.
It is a tough crash, and with that, of course, James Stewart took himself out of the championship there for the most part. And the point standings are Ricky Carmichael now by 9 points over Chad Reed. And James Stewart, who's the main contender, is really going to have to wait for race wins.
I'm pretty sore, you know. My knee's been bothering me a lot, and then you know, track's getting really rough, so it's getting a lot tougher on me. But I'm gonna go out there and try to do my best. You know, I feel like, you know, all I can do is try to do my best. I haven't rode since Mount Morris, so hopefully it all will go good. So we'll see what happens.
Well, the last couple years, this kid's had more crashes than Billy Joel in the Hamptons. And he's come out of them. He's still a tough kid.
You know what? I'm always learning something new at every race, whether it's a little bit more about the bike or about the track. It's really fun, and I'm enjoying it. It's easy to stay motivated. It seems the older I get, for some reason, that's weird. And just I'm always learning something every weekend.
A few familiar faces and numbers coming back. Aaron Bates has more on that story.
Well, there's something about this sandy, treacherous, rough track here at Southwick that brings back legends of our sport to come back for a little bit more action. John Dowd making an appearance in front of his hometown crowd, just coming back from reconstructive knee surgery, and Travis Pastrana making an appearance here. Nice to see him back as well, hoping just to have a little bit of fun. But probably the most intriguing story is the story of Doug Henry trying to pull off the same scenario as Tony Stewart did, trying to race 2 different motorsport races in a short span of 24 hours. Last night he was racing a supermoto race in Wisconsin, getting 11th and a 6th. Monster Energy actually chartered a private jet to fly him here overnight and park him under the Monster Energy rig this afternoon to get him here ready to race in front of his hometown crowd along with some old-time friends.
All right, we'll see ya.
Well, Doug Henry's a warrior, and well, sometimes warriors travel in private jets.
Yeah, that was a classy little sip from the can there. Turned and showed the logo. That was well played.
Travis Pastrana, of course, Mr. Excitement, earned his first ever national win here in the 125 class at Southwick, and since then has gone on to great things. Along with the number 19, there's Doug Henry, that familiar number, and indeed we see him in Supermoto competition during the Supermoto Championship as well.
I know one of his main goals this weekend was just to get some points to keep that national number 19 for another year.
Chad Reed now sort of inherits the spot of chasing the champion Ricky Carmichael as James Bubba Stewart picks himself up off the ground. We've seen that happen, I'm going to say, a few too many times for the very exciting number 7 rider. Tim Ferry Also another great name from motocross coming out to make an appearance at Southwick.
And he's a sand rider from Florida, so this was the obvious choice for him to come back. Fifth fastest lap time.
Yes, indeed. So Timmy Ferry could be heard from here today as well.
I've been hurt, actually. I hurt my leg right towards the end of Supercross, and just been spending about a month on the bike so far, just trying to get healthy before I come back and pick the sand track to come back to.
Well, our Honda starting lineup has Ricky Carmichael and Chad Reed, now the two principal championship contenders, although James Stewart is here, and of course, if he's here, it means he can win.
Mike Treadwell and Tony LaRusso are the local guys. You normally wouldn't maybe see them at so many nationals, but they come out here in the sand, and they actually do surprisingly well.
Well, the track is ready, and the starting gates are set to drop here. We'll take a look. Of course, the first order of business is the whole shot. Let's see who gets it in that mad scramble down to turn number 1. Ricky Carmichael and number 4, Suzuki, always prominent at the start. Tough call to make here for the whole shot award.
Well, it's Stewart out front now, and that's going to be interesting. Ricky's in third, so he's close enough to keep on him, but if James gets a little momentum going, he could run away with this.
And you've already talked about many, many times how difficult it is to pass here on this track, how often and David Villeman having a problem here on his Yamaha YZ450. These big 4-strokes are hard to start, and even with the mechanic standing right there, he had to do all the kicking himself.
That's Jacob Saylor up near the front. He's a privateer. I think he might have gotten the whole shot. That's another privateer. We had a privateer get a whole shot in the lights class. I don't know what's going on with this starting gate here, but it's favoring some of the privateer guys.
Well, Jacob Saylor on the 198, not to be confused with the 199 Travis Pastrana. James Stewart on the number 7 Kawasaki out in front with Ricky Carmichael. And Saylor losing spots here, kind of one after the other. And if he indeed was the whole shot winner, we still haven't gotten official word on that. We'll certainly let you know.
Millsaps lives in Cairo, Georgia, very close to Florida. There's a lot of sand down there, so he's very fluent in the sand.
Chad Reed on the number 22 Yamaha. There's Saylor. We continue to watch riders streaming through and taking so many different lines around the racetrack.
There's John Dowd. You can see him inside the top 10. Now, at 40 years old, this guy's amazing. Still coming out, does a couple nationals a year, and he's amazing that he can come in and get a top 10 at that age, doing it part-time.
Well, Dowdy, one of the great veterans, one of the real Iron Men of the sport, and always a pleasure to watch him race. James Stewart, Ricky Carmichael, though, that's been the headline act all season long, both in Supercross, now in motocross, and very much like the Supercross season. James Stewart has taken a serious hit for championship aspirations, but he's always a threat to win. Here's Davey Millsaps, who's been on the podium now a couple of times, and this young rider's really, really developing nicely.
Well, Honda's got high hopes for Davey Millsaps, and they had some discussions on whether or not they were going to leave him in the lights class or move him up to the 450 for the summer. So they decided, because of his height and weight, let's go ahead and move him up, see how he does, and he's rewarded them with a couple of podiums in motos and just consistent riding, as you see here. He had some trouble at the opener at Sacramento. He laid on the ground just about every time he went out, but he's definitely improving and learning, and as you can see right now, running a solid third.
And, of course, rewarded Honda with an overall podium the last time out. Davey Millsaps running just ahead of Chad Reed on the Yamaha number 22. Second place in the championship right now behind Ricky Carmichael as we watch the rest of the field come streaming through here. The sound of the big bikes certainly different than it has been in the premier motocross class over the years past. We had, first of all 2-strokes, then a mix, and now pretty much all the big thumpers.
Well, here you got Justin Buckaloo, Jacob Saylor, Nick Way, great privateer riders, all these guys fighting for top 10 spots.
Number 118, Davey Millsaps. Then it's Chad Reed right now. Reed, of course, the veteran, the Australian, Supercross champ. And things have kind of spread out just a little bit, although Reed and Millsaps having a nice little tussle over here for the final spot on the Moto 1 podium. Ricky Carmichael in second position and not that far ahead of these two in third and fourth, as our Toyota leaderboard tells you the story. Motocross Championship is being brought to you by Toyota, proud sponsor of AMA Motocross. Toyota, moving forward. By Suzuki, lightweight, superior power, incredible handling. It's why champions choose Suzuki. By Progressive Direct, don't go underprotected. Get a dirt bike insurance quote at progressive.com or call 1-800-PROGRESSIVE. And by Honda, the company that defines performance in motorcycles, ATVs, personal watercraft, and scooters. Up front racing, James Stewart on the number 7 Kawasaki. Ricky Carmichael, we might get used to seeing this all season long. The battles that we've been waiting for, no longer dominated by any one rider. AMA Motocross is really a three-way fight if you include Chad Reed, who's just made the move on Davey Millsaps to move into 3rd spot, so all the players are up front again.
And that's what all these fans came here to Southwick to see. That's what they're going to come all summer to watch, are these battles. You got Stewart and Carmichael out front, kind of having their own little war, and now you got Davey Millsaps, who's been pressuring Chad Reed for this spot, the last spot on the podium. You can kind of watch here and see how they kind of cruise and tiptoe through that corner where James and Ricky are just pinning it. You know, that's the difference between the pace of these two guys. It's not that they're going slow, but Stewart and Carmichael are absolutely flying.
Chad Reed getting the best of Davey Millsaps, who has acknowledged that some of his success came at the expense of James Stewart, that his spots on the podium were when Stewart was on the ground. Here's Travis Pastrana, the number 199. Fans always come out to see that yellow Suzuki.
And, you know, he hasn't been really training for this, wasn't really prepared for it, but people love to see him come out, and it's great to just have him be a part of the event.
That yellow Suzuki with a number 4 on it is now challenging James Stewart for the lead. Stewart's speed, perhaps second to none, but the consistency and the experience of Ricky Carmichael has him once again in the driver's seat for the championship. Not any given weekend. He's already acknowledged that James is hard to keep up with on a given day. But for Ricky Carmichael, he's in there for the months that it takes to win a title.
You know, most people are just way too conservative. I mean, that's what these guys have, is just that desire to win. If it was me, if I was leading a race and I just had a big crash, I'd maybe just say, well, you know what, I'll take it easy and settle here. I don't want to crash again. Maybe second's good. James just doesn't settle for that. He wants to win, and he's just going to absolutely do whatever he can do to win.
It's as though he has no memory of how bad it hurt to be stuck in the ground at the last round. He just goes right out and flies.
He needs to watch that tape a couple more times.
Makes my teeth hurt.
Or maybe he doesn't. I mean, here he is leading, and he looks like he's got things in control.
James, if you can hear me, just keep doing what you're doing. It's beyond me to try to tell you how to do this, how to craft your sport. Ricky Carmichael watching and studying. You know he's being patient and looking for a weakness or even waiting for a mistake.
And, you know, Ricky, you can see he has got to stay wide. He's got to try to stay out of James' roost. You know, he's in his lines coming out of those turns. He's just getting facefuls of sand. So if he's going to stay on his wheel like this the entire moto, he's got to stay off to one side or the other to save his goggles. You know, they used to be able to only able to run 5, 6, 7 tear-offs before it started to look like you were looking through the bottom of a Coke bottle. But now they can run up to 21, 24 tear-offs with these laminated packs that come in 7 or 8 of them that look like one. So that does help, but still you get sand in your mouth, you're breathing it into your lungs, you're coughing it up. You can see him just crisscrossing back and forth across the roofs.
Having a look up the inside there, and indeed, Carmichael trying to go left to right, right to left. It's almost like a water skier in the wake of a boat. He's got to go to one side and then the other to try to stay out of all that turbulent sand in this case.
And as rough as this track is, I mean, it's hard to appreciate how fast these guys are going. They are absolutely flying right now.
Well, I'm also taking notice of what you talked about and how much faster the two leaders are than anybody behind them. Their aggression and their body language and the pure speed with which they take these turns is visible. It's visible. You can see it.
Yeah, it is, and it shows up on a stopwatch big time. So behind these two, no disrespect to any of those guys, but they're way off the pace.
Well, everybody's going as fast as they can. It's just that these two can go a lot faster than everybody else.
Yeah, we need to sit their parents down and find out what kind of ridiculous genetic cloning they did to come up with these two.
Well, there's a lot of hard work involved in it as well, and we know how hard Ricky Carmichael trains. We know how hard James Stewart trains, and that is part of why, along with genetics, they're out in front of everybody else and in a class by themselves.
Well, a lot of guys train. I don't know, but not a lot of guys can ride like these two. something special about them, that's for sure. And you just got to enjoy it while they're here and while they're both racing together, because this is the last season you're going to see it in its entirety.
Well, it certainly reminds us of many of the great glory days in the past when there were 2 and 3 riders contesting week in and week out for championships, and they were hard fought right down to the finish, as we know this outdoor season is going to be in 2006. Working through some traffic right now, Carmichael and Stewart trying to make some room on an already crowded track.
You know, in the first lights class moto, we had a bunch of mechanical DNFs. This sand is very, very hard on engines. Sand plugs up the radiators, makes the bikes run hot. It's very deep, so it's constantly pulling down on the motor, and they're just adding to the temperature, which is a big issue with these 4-strokes, and gets into a lot of the parts. Sometimes you can suck sand through your air filter. So it'll be interesting to see if we have any mechanical problems.
Side by side, Carmichael and Stewart. Carmichael making his first bid to take the lead here, and he is edged in front just ever so slightly. Stewart with a shorter inside line, though, will be able to fight back. And the lap rider, number 31, and that is Jason Thomas, is probably thinking, wow, this is cool.
JT Money's a sand rider from Florida. You think he'd have, you know, a little bit of speed for these guys, but nobody does. Also nice that James and Ricky can race clean. You know, Ricky swung in from the outside. James could have left it on and just T-boned him, put them both on the ground. They race clean.
So Ricky Carmichael is out in front, working through the traffic as we look at our Toyota leaderboard with Team Suzuki and David Pingree.
Yeah, here at Southwick, obviously it's known for its sand. It's just like beach sand, and in fact, a great analogy is if you go down to the beach and try to run on the sand, how much harder is that than riding on or running on hard pack or blacktop? Here it's the same theory. You've got to carry momentum through the turn. Stay, you know, at the bottom of the berm. Don't get in it too deep to where it sucks you down. But you can't brake and square up a turn and shoot out of it. You've got to flow around the corners, carry your momentum, keep the throttle on, keep your momentum going, and use it to your advantage. That'll help you stay on top of the bumps. You see those big kickers. You got to keep your front end light and stay across the top of those bumps rather than G'ing out into them.
This week's riding tip, sand. The AMA Toyota Motocross Championship by FMF. Ricky Carmichael on the number 4 machine, out in front right now. Put the pass on James Stewart just a few moments ago, and since then has put together a couple of pretty decent laps and opened the gap.
Well, maybe James is just kind of settling down. You know, he knows he's got a concussion last weekend. Those are tough. You don't want to jump back into racing after that too hard, and it's nothing to mess around with.
Doug Henry on the number 19 machine. Flew in on a private jet overnight from Supermoto in Shawano, Wisconsin. And he's racing twice in the same weekend in 2 very different forms of motorsport. Doug Henry, always a tough competitor.
He's competing for that Supermoto title. He's one of the fastest guys in that sport. Just says a lot about his skills on a motorcycle in general when he can come here to a national and run top 10, no problem.
Ricky Carmichael, though, setting a standard. Oh, and making a mistake. He disappeared out of the shot so quickly you couldn't tell, but he's down on the racetrack, picks the bike up. Here's where we're going to figure out just how far behind Stewart was. But now James Stewart goes flashing by and has become the leader in this one. Carmichael's going to have to try to run him down all over again.
Well, you could see Ricky when he came out of that sweeper there, he just got into a bump too deep and the back end swapped back around.
And he was able to get the bike started, but he has lost a bunch of ground. It would have been more, except for the pace that he was setting up front. So James Stewart now, with the white flag waving on the last lap, has inherited the lead, and if he's able to ride error-free, will pick up a win.
Well, that's great for James. I mean, he's you got to commend him just for coming out and racing. You know, most riders wouldn't even do that. He's a tough kid.
And he seems to be from another world. To come back from that kind of an accident to even race at all, never mind pick up a win in the very next moto. James Stewart, yeah, from another planet? I don't know. There's a theory.
Well, maybe there's something down in the water there in Florida.
Well, he's definitely got something that the rest of us and even most of his competitors do not. James Stewart with an extra measure of what it takes to be an extremely fast motocrosser.
You see him kind of mow down those little yellow spikes that are sticking out of the ground. That's a cool addition to the Nationals this year. They actually fold over when you hit them, as opposed to digging wooden spikes into the ground where a rider falls on them, he could impale himself. These just fold down to the ground.
So Ricky Carmichael, in spite of what was a fairly extended period of time with the bike laying on the ground and unstarted, has still managed to hold on to second position here behind James Stewart. That's how much better than everybody else these two are.
Ricky's
crash and still hold on to second.
You know, Ricky's going to be mad at himself when he gets back to the pits. He had that moto win locked up, and when he makes a mistake like that, he's really hard on himself. Most guys will go, oh, well, you know, I'm the greatest ever, got some championships, whatever. He will go back and absolutely punish himself about it. He'll work all week on whatever the mistake was he made, and he'll make sure he doesn't do it again.
James Stewart trying to remain likewise error-free here on the final lap of Moto number 1. Takes a quick look back. Doesn't see much that will concern him, and so he may or may not back off the pace just a little bit. But in any case, he'll want to bring it home to take this win.
In fact, I wonder if Ricky will go all Da Vinci Code on us and start whipping himself this week.
The AMA Toyota Motocross Championship finishes after this. Welcome back to Southwick, Massachusetts for the AMA Toyota Motocross Championship by FMF. Moto number 1 is in the books as we look at our Suzuki Moto results. James Stewart taking it over Ricky Carmichael and Chad Reed. Yes, the top 3 just keep changing positions as we look at the rest of the results. For this one, let's go to Aaron Bates with Ricky Carmichael, number 4.
Ricky, deja vu, what took place here at Southwick last year. You were like a predator hunting its prey there for a bit, but then the track came up and bit you. What happened?
Yeah, just suspension went down and kind of rebounded me back and fell down. That's a shame, man. I felt good, and you know, I kind of got up, caught behind James, was just riding his pace, and should have tried to make a move a little earlier, but you know what? Hey, hats off to him. He beat me.
Our Racer X hole shot, we were guessing, but it is official. Jacob Saylor on the number 198 Honda takes the honors and got out in front, but James Stewart passed him pretty quickly.
James, you were able to make it happen. You sort of had a gift handed to you. You were in the lead there for a while. Was it sheer adrenaline that you were running on?
Yeah, you know, so painful out there riding, you know. Plus, you know, we're not coming to one of the smoothest tracks of the year. You know, Southwick, you got to stand up a lot, and it's just taking a beating on my knee. But, you know, I felt like I rode good. You know, Ricky got around me, then I started actually catching him a little bit, and then he made that mistake in the back. But, you know, it was fun. You know, I didn't even feel like I would even be this close. So, you know, it's an honor to be up here, so I'm happy.
James Stewart making it happen.
It's interesting how Ricky or James both have to make a comment that they were catching him before they fell.
Nobody does more to protect your right to ride than the American Motorcyclist Association. Every racer on the track is an AMA member. How about you? Call 1-800-AMA-JOIN or visit AMADirectLink.com. The AMA, rights, riding, and racing. Let's go into the mine with Travis Preston.
Basically just been moving, just got done building a new house, and we've just been moving all day. Got to move all my bikes, all my gear, all my tools, and then, you know, clothes, furniture, all stuff like that. I tell you what, I wouldn't want to be a mover, that's for sure. Moving sucks. This is the TP Racing headquarters where I've been stationed for the last year. So if you guys want to take a look. Full service workshop in here. Pretty much got it all. Laundry, workbenches, plenty of room.
How many people does it sleep?
As many as you can fit, pretty much. I got the Airdyne right there. I pumped that thing out for 3 hours. 120 plus. That's my office too, right there, the desk. That's where I do all my race reports for Honda. Go on the computer, book flights. Shoot, that's there's not really a lot to what I do. I just ride motorcycles, and I guess I'm just a normal guy. I don't really think I say funny things or anything, but I don't crack jokes. I don't do anything. I just say normal things, and some people find that funny.
You cutting down on the weight, no side plate?
No, it's freestyle. This is where I do my tricks, my hand grabs and stuff like that. I don't know if that's good because no one ever says, hey, Travis, you know, you ride really fast. It's always, hey, Travis, I like your interviews. Because, you know, if I do get up there, I know there's a lot of things that I want to say. But Ricky and Bubba, they're just selfish or something. I don't, you know, they just can't give a brother a chance. In 01 I was, because I was riding for Husqvarna, which at that time is, you know, bottom of the barrel, like the worst thing you could ever ride. And I knew I either had to, you know, do something that year or else I was going to be done racing. So I rode that Husqvarna the best I could ride it and just rode it and rode it and rode it. And Honda saw that and they offered me a ride for 2002. I was just really happy to be on that team, happy to have a chance to ride, and just gave it everything I got that year and had a lot of good luck. You know, Bubba crashed a lot and ended up winning championship. Because maybe that's why people like NASCAR, because you never know who's going to win. But I look at it as motocross is, I think our sport is that hard and it's that tough. You know, you're going to have a select few that are just have everything together and they're going to be out in front all the time. I just think they're cheering for Ricky and Bubba. You know, because, you know, I'm not winning or anything, so. Huge into politics.
Really?
Really big into politics. I read books, listen radio, like always. That's basically what I do in my free time. I know a lot about racing pigeons. You know what? That's probably one thing somebody wouldn't know about me. I know a lot about racing pigeons, and it's not by choice. My father-in-law races pigeons, and he likes to tell me about it a lot, so I sit and listen. And I've learned a lot about it.
Did he say racing pigeons?
I don't know. It has to take a back seat to racing motocross when we come back. Welcome back to Southwick. Motocross 338 here at the Suzuki Motocross 338 National presented by Scott USA. Let's go to Aaron Bates. The subject, weather.
Here in Massachusetts, they're having what you call a nor'easter front, which is a storm that's coming in. It's making the temperature fluctuate anywhere from 20 to 30 degrees, but I tell you what, if you remember what took place here last year, it was about 110 degrees, 98% of humidity. It was absolutely miserable, not only for me, but for all of these riders here behind me. A lot of them dropping off like flies, going back to the medic tent, getting rehydrated. It's not the case that's happening here this weekend, which is rather nice, but these guys still are in for survival of the fittest.
Well, it's always about fitness as we once again take a look at the Honda starting lineup here. James Stewart, Ricky Carmichael, and Chad Reed, the stars, but the harder you work, the more you're successful, and it does take a lot of work to be successful at this level.
Yeah, this track here at Southwick, especially in the second moto, it separates the men from the boys. The track is beat. It is so rough right now. Berms are big, deep. They moved inside and outside, and the guys that are fit survive this moto. The ones that aren't, they pull it in.
Side by side, James Stewart, Ricky Carmichael off the starting gate. Stewart gets the better start and could have gotten the whole shot award. In any case, he comes out with the lead with Carmichael sitting in the number 2 position. And I believe that's Millsap's third.
Wow, Ricky's not wasting any time. He talked about wanting to get James earlier the first moto. He's all over him, trying to make something happen right now.
Almost made a pass right there, but James Stewart holds on. And already, just 3 or 4 turns into the race, they're beginning to pull away from quite a few riders. Davey Millsap's the only one who's really hanging tough.
You got to wonder if Ricky's getting mad at himself about his starts. It seems like Stewart's been getting all the hole shots lately, and Ricky's used to doing that. So you got to think that when he goes home, man, he's just working on that all day.
Carmichael in second. Davey Millsap's on the Honda third. It's Kawasaki's James Stewart out in front as he was in moto number 1. And again, riders choosing very different lines, trying to stay out of the roost of the guy in front. Carmichael up and over. Millsap's right there, closest he's been, and he's hanging close for longer than we've seen in the past, at least in moto number 1.
That's the same 4 characters here. You know, Millsap's, Chad Reed's right behind him, and then Stewart and Carmichael out front. So it looks like the same battles are shaping up. Those two are going to kind of do their thing. Reed will probably catch up to Millsaps, and those two will have their little fight.
Right now it's 1-2-3 as Millsaps goes for a tear-off there, trying to keep Ricky Carmichael close. Carmichael doing the same with Stewart. Now it's spreading out just ever so slightly among the three, and Chad Reed's going to have to get on his horse if he is going to catch up to Davey Millsaps.
You watch these guys, they're never sitting down. You just don't get a chance. There's too many bumps. You sit down, and the bike just pops up into your back, and it just ruins you. You actually, the more tired you get, the more you have a tendency to sit down, and then the more beat up you get because that seat's just pounding you. So this track is so tough on your back. You watch these guys, they'll only sit down just for a second when they pivot into that berm.
On board with Dowdy, the number 16, John Dowd on his Moose Suzuki. This is an idea, gives you a little bit different idea, a little bit better idea perhaps about how rough it is.
Wow, I feel like I'm on a space shuttle re-entry or something.
Watching the rider in front of him as well as experiencing what Dowd's going through himself.
It's really hard to watch this and have it do any justice. I mean, until you got the handlebars being jerked forward and back and your back end swapping side to side, and you're having to pull on those bars, you know, for 40 minutes straight. Video's cool, but it just doesn't do it justice.
Very impressed with Davey Millsaps running up in third position there. Nick Way on the number 27 machine, sixth. And all the way through the field now, some pretty good battles going on here. The 14, that's K-Dub, Kevin Windham, who's still coming back a little bit on the recovery trail from injuries that he suffered.
Seems like he's struggling to find his pace a little bit, but mostly he's getting bad starts. I'm not sure why that is, but a lot of these races we've been watching, he's working his way back up from the back of the pack in the moto.
And here we have a problem as Travis Pastrana, we've got to look at Travis Preston there briefly, but Pastrana down on the track, locked up with Jeff DeMint, and both of them trying to get going again. Southwick with James Stewart narrowly leading Ricky Carmichael, and I could get used to this. How about you, Ping?
Oh man, this is what it's all about. This is why people love motocross, to see battles like this.
So Carmichael and Stewart, again, very different lines, and we've told you why that happens here at Southwick. James Stewart on the number 7 Kawasaki. Ricky Carmichael, championship points leader for the 10th year in a row, is continuing to find an opening, looking for an opening to try to get around Stewart. We heard him say he should have done it earlier in the first moto, and it's already quite a ways into moto number 2. He still hasn't been able to get it done. Now he pulls up alongside into the lead. Stewart, though, with the inside line, battles back to the front. Right-hand turn, Stewart's got the edge. Carmichael's going to have to settle for second for the time being again.
Carmichael's not going to lay off him. I mean, he's going to keep the pressure on him right to the end if he lasts that long.
So now Stewart with a little bit of a wide line. Carmichael swapping ends. Almost had a disaster happen there, but he gathers it back up, loses the lead to Stewart again. That's 3 lead changes in the last 30 seconds.
And Ricky had that same problem happen to him in the first moto. That's how he crashed. Got into a bump a little too deep instead of staying light and on top of it. The suspension goes in, compresses, and when it comes back out, it wants to pop to one side or the other.
I have to ask, was that genuine fan enthusiasm or were they pretending? They were real. That was real. These guys are excited on the long side of the track.
You know, another effect of Southwick, not only are you tired at the end of the day, but it carries on throughout the week. I can remember 2 and 3 days after the race, laying in bed, having sand in my eyes, feels like I got rocks in there. Your hands turn red and are blistered and they hurt. I remember sitting on a plane flight on the way home Monday, and my back had more knots in it than a Boy Scout handbook.
So James Stewart still having to feel some of the effects of the crash that he suffered at the last round. Ricky Carmichael has made a few mistakes and tipped over now and then, but is riding pretty much injury-free.
Ricky's been setting him up in this turn. He goes inside as they come up out of this hill.
And he does it again. Yep. Not close enough, though. Working right up behind the back wheel, trying to stay out of that roost. Crosses through it as quickly as he can. To the inside goes Carmichael. Stewart blocks him off.
These two charge so hard into obstacles. You watch them come over these jumps, off these drop-offs where other guys are kind of coasting. They are wide open. You can see Ricky just hanging off the bike.
And some of the more experienced veterans standing at trackside, the mechanics, they don't know what's going to happen. Stewart, Carmichael. And then there's everybody else, and they're nowhere in the picture, hardly. Although Millsaps is still hanging close. Might get a glimpse of him every now and then. Stewart, Carmichael, and Millsaps not far behind in third. Chad Reed still trying to make up some ground onto the podium.
You can see the Millsaps front wheel just pop into the picture there for a second. He's actually keeping these two in sight, which is impressive for him. I mean, no one's really had their speed all year. And here Millsaps, you just barely get a glimpse of him come into the picture, but he's keeping these guys honest. There he is.
Yep, just sneaking into the shot every now and then, and definitely a solid third position right now. Ricky taking a look back, probably like us, a little bit surprised at Davey Millsaps being right there.
I would say not just a little bit. I mean, he's not used to anyone being back there.
Of course, the manufacturers have to love it as Carmichael takes the lead again.
Whoa.
Suzuki, Kawasaki, and Honda, they're all right there. Everybody's got a little something to be happy about here today at Southwick.
That was old school RC too. Feet off the pegs, a little sideways, just wide open.
And Stewart likewise coming back with a very, very determined effort here. Pulls up alongside on the inside of the right-hand turn. Carmichael with a bike length or two is going to stay in front. Here he comes, Stewart. The crowd goes crazy. A little too much off the berm.
Stewart knows you got to make a pass back on him immediately. You know, if he tries to settle in behind him, you know, Ricky doesn't make mistakes often.
Take another look. Look at that. Oh, man.
You know how many guys in the world could have saved that? It's not you or me.
No.
We'd have been headed to the medic.
Yeah, I was going to say, besides in this room, that would be everyone. Ricky Carmichael and James Stewart giving the fans their money's worth here at Southwick today. Millsaps, and now Reed has gotten that much closer. So once again, just like Moto 1, Davey Millsaps and Chad Reed battling for third, while James Stewart and Ricky Carmichael fight up front.
Davey kind of letting him go. He might be tired. He's probably not used to running the pace of Ricky and James, so he did that for so long, he probably just burned himself out.
Well, Chad Reed in third position now and pulling away from the 2006 AMA Toyota Motocross Championship. Has been brought to you by Toyota, proud sponsor of AMA Motocross. Toyota, moving forward. And by Suzuki, lightweight, superior power, incredible handling. It's why champions choose Suzuki. Moto number 2, and Ricky Carmichael is all alone. Why? Because he put a pass finally on James Stewart that appears to have stuck, and it may be at this point we are down to fitness. We are down to a rider who isn't dealing with an injury, and on the other hand, James Stewart, who has to be feeling a little bit less than 100% right now.
Well, Ricky, yeah, he's healthy, he's fit, he's doing his program all week. I mean, he's the GOAT. But in James Stewart's case, he's had an injury. He hasn't been able to do anything all week but lay on the couch, try to get the swelling down and recover. So he's not at 100%. He's probably tired and just settling in for second, which is a smart idea.
Ricky Carmichael also kind of settling in on cruise control, still going fast. As long as he goes faster than the number 7 Kawasaki, a win in Moto 2 will be his. Stewart doesn't appear as though he is gathering himself for any sort of late attack.
Oh.
In fact, whoa! We saw smoke first, which tells me something was wrong with the bike, and that was not a James Stewart error. That was a mechanical problem. The effect is still the same.
Well, the good news is he didn't knock himself out. He's conscious, but man, this is getting to happen too often here.
And so universally respected is James Stewart that everybody runs over to help him out. Watch, let's see if we see any. Oh yeah, rear wheel stopped, engine stopped.
Yeah, when the rear wheel locks up, there's something that grenaded inside that thing, and when you stop the spinning mass of that rear wheel, the front end immediately drops. Going that fast, that's an ugly result.
And so Ricky Carmichael, unaware of what has happened to James Stewart, is just riding his own race. Eventually, he will have to know as he looks back and does not see that number 7 Kawasaki. Looking again.
Oh, he's in some pain. You can see it on his face. He was in pain before he even started today.
So James Stewart with the Asterisk medical crew always right there at the ready. He's going to climb into the mule, and his day is done here in Moto number 2.
This guy needs a new nickname like Gumby or something. I don't know how he walks away from these crashes.
It is not an easy thing to do.
He had a very bad bone bruise in his knee from the high point crash. The two bones kind of bonked together and caused a bruise deep in the bone. It's very, very painful. And other than that, in the concussion, he's going to be fine, but you just can't keep taking those kind of blows and expect to keep racing.
And Ricky Carmichael has to have guessed what has happened. James Stewart has left the building, so to speak, and Ricky Carmichael earns his win in Moto number 2. And if Ricky has guessed what has happened, let's show you one more time what did happen to James Stewart. Again, watch the motorcycle, not what the rider's doing.
Yeah, you see that rear wheel just stop and then smoke billowing out the back. I don't know exactly what that means, but at the end of the day, it's not good.
Well, the motorcycle became unstarted, that's for sure, and when it did, James Stewart was a passenger and no longer a pilot.
It's just good to see him walking off.
Well, we'll take a look at the highlights, which include the great racing that these two were doing before the incident by Stewart. Side by side, Carmichael and Stewart giving us a show.
Yeah, if his bike, if he wouldn't have had that last lap crash, what a great day. You know, these two just went back and forth all day long, traded moto wins. I don't think you can ask for better racing than that. You got Ricky doing the little one-footed Bob Hanna action.
And side by side, they went after it, the crowd cheering relentlessly for the entire moto until James Stewart had a mechanical problem, which put his bike and then him on the ground on top of it. So Carmichael takes the moto win as we look at our Suzuki Moto results. Davey Millsaps in third position, another good ride for him. And let's go to Aaron Bates to hear from Chad Reed first.
I was eating a lot of sand out there, but yeah, I just didn't feel good, and these guys just got a good rhythm, and I had to work at that one. I had to really put my head down and just kind of work at it.
Our overall results, Ricky Carmichael, runner-up in Moto number 1, winning Moto number 2. That's going to give him another overall win over Chad Reed, and Davey Millsaps with another podium overall. Back to Aaron Bates.
Davey, for only your third race in the Premier class, you've managed to be up here on the podium 2 out of those 3 times. What's your secret to this?
Bubba going down. I don't know. You know, it's a shame that he went down, and you know they're up there, and I was running with them for the first half the moto, and you know back cramped up a little bit and couldn't stand up anymore, and you know went downhill from there.
Our Racer X Hole Shot Award. James Bubba Stewart on the number 7 Kawasaki getting out in front, and it's worth noting that they had lapped up through so much of the field that Stewart ends up 11th even after a crash. So Chad Reed talking it over with Ricky and Davey Millsaps on the podium. One more time to Aaron Bates.
Ricky, this is going to be the last time we see you race here at Southwick. It seemed as though you were riding on the ragged edge. You and James are pushing it to the limits. Was it the enthusiastic crowd that gets you guys pumped right up?
Definitely. You know, the crowd is loving it. How could they not, as good as the racing has been? And, man, it's just been a blast. And, you know, definitely, you know, I'm going to hate leaving this place. I don't know, maybe I have to come back and race here. I love this track. It's tough, and it's definitely a tough man's track, and got to get up to my trainer, Eldon Baker, for keeping me in shape.
Congratulations on another victory.
And our point standings have Carmichael now 14 points ahead of Chad Reed, extending his lead by a few here, with Millsaps holding on third spot for the championship. And, well, we have to hope that James comes back quickly and gives us more of what we've experienced here today.
Yeah, that's right. You know, this racing is not always going to be this good. You know, tape these races. Make sure you get to one of these nationals this summer. Just enjoy it, because those two guys are having battles that you're not going to see for a while.
It's off to Budds Creek next. So Maryland hosts the AMA Toyota Motocross Championship the next time we see you. Until then, for David Pingree and Aaron Bates, I'm Brian Dreher.